This video is recorded on patch 3.25, which introduced the Black Market in King's March. While King's March won't be available during the campaign after 3.25, the Black Market functionality will be added to NPCs throughout the campaign. This is an extremely helpful way to get specific gear while leveling, and it should be used as frequently as possible. This video will be cut up into segments. I may not go over every single area in a given act. Chosen to only cover specific areas that I think have notable information that could be useful. In general, I'll be covering areas that either have unique layouts that have indicators to follow, areas that have specific quests, or areas that have particularly dangerous enemies. At the start of each act, I'll show an informational image like this. This image will have breakdowns of notable points in the act, including when new sets of gems are unlocked and what quests give notable rewards. I'll leave this image on the screen for a couple seconds at the start of each section. This will be noted in timestamps titled Act X Information. These timestamps can be found in the description below to make it easier to find these quick notes while progressing in the campaign yourself. In the early campaign especially, sources of flat damage are extremely powerful. When the only bases you have access to have such insanely low amounts of base damage, the scaling effect of things like percent physical damage or percent elemental damage just don't have that much of an impact. Beyond that, you can also get sources of flat damage for attack on rings, amulets, gloves, not just on your weapon. When it comes to spells, you have a lot fewer sources of flat damage, mostly on your weapon, but in the early stages, these flat damage mods give you a lot more damage than levels to skills mods would. Currency is extremely important in the early campaign. A lot of skill gems cost currencies that you're just less likely to find on the ground, so it's always important to think about what currencies you might need. Selling unidentified items will get you transmutation shards, whereas identifying the magic and rare items before you sell them will get you alteration shards and sometimes alchemy shards. In Acts 1 and 2, you'll generally want a couple more transmutation orbs, but as you get into Act 3 and beyond, alteration orbs become a lot more important. Crafting extra modifiers on your gear is extremely helpful for giving you an easier time in the campaign. It's a good idea to note where some of the recipes that aren't on the main path might be hiding, which can give you a huge power boost. For example, there's a flat fire damage craft hidden here in a side room next to Diala in Act 3. The character I'm playing in this video is a Sunder Slayer. I provided a path of building with settings for each section of the campaign that can be followed in the description below. If you're watching this video many years later, this probably won't be relevant anymore. Path of Exile has an angled 3-point perspective camera, which differentiates itself from an isometric camera by having vanishing points along each of its axes. This means that when I refer to the direction up, I'm not actually referring to directly up on our monitors, but angled more towards the top left. If you disagree with me, I hate you, but when you hear me refer to the directions up, right, down, and left, these are the specific directions I'm referring to. As for why I chose these directions specifically, to start Act 1, just run through the coast, not really bothering to kill much. Stone level's too low, and the enemies are way more annoying than they're worth. Once we get to the waypoint, go straight to the mudflats. In the mudflats here, we're looking for 3 Roa nests. You can follow the flow of the water on the ground to find them, but if you play on lower resolutions like I do, that's pretty much impossible. Just look around for these exclamation marks. They'll usually spawn in a little triangle. Starting in this zone, it's in our best interest to try and kill at least some monsters in every area. In general, magic packs, monsters that have a blue border around them will be the most experience efficient for time spent. There's a lot of rules to follow to be maximally efficient, but all that really matters is you want to be around 3 levels plus or minus the zone level. After opening the submerged passive, we get level 4 gems from Tarkly. You can either return to town from the waypoint and pick up some new skills, or just waypoint straight back to the coast and go to the tidal island. On the far side of this zone, kill Hailrake, pick up the medicine chest, and then go turn it into Nessa for a quicksilver flask. Back at the submerged passage, when you find a staircase, you can drop a portal here to come back to later, but this barely saves any time, so it's really not a big deal. Keep going through the ledge, the climb, and into the lower prison. Entering this area gives you level 8 gems, so it's worth going back to town for a power boost. If you dropped a portal earlier, make sure you use the waypoint to get back to town so you don't accidentally overwrite it. From here, you can either take your portal back to the submerged passage or just waypoint back and look for the flooded depths. This area will always spawn before the staircase. At the end of the flooded depths, kill the Dweller of the Deep and go back to town for a skill point from Tarkly. Now's a good time to get familiar with shorthands for searching specific items from vendors known as registry expressions. Here you can see me type NN to search for boots with movement speed. This is because the movement speed modifier they'd spawn with is called runners, so if any boots did have that movement speed mod, they'd be highlighted. You can also see me type R-G. This searches for any items with a linked red and green socket. Same idea can be applied for blue sockets as well. Turn to the lower prison and search for the lab trial. If you find the entrance to the upper prison, take note of where it's at, but don't keep going until you do the lab trial. The easiest way to find lab trials on the map is to look for the little lore book icon. Every lab trial will have a bronze monograph out the front of it. Afterwards, go through the upper prison and find your first boss, Brutus. Brutus got 3 attacks. I'll slam the ground 3 times in front of him, do a slow-moving ground slam. If you're at range, he can try and hook you. Get familiar with the most overpowered bossing playstyle in all of Path of Exile. Walking in a circle. Once Brutus is dead, it's fastest to either portal back to town or log out and log back in to get teleported to town. Take this time to clear out your inventory, look for better socketed gear, and get your gems sorted. Take the waypoint back to the Prisoner's Gate. We're going to look for a ledge on one side of the road here. Get down this ledge, follow the wall until you find a path through, and just do it 2 more times to find the ship graveyard. In the ship graveyard, follow the wall, not the ocean, to most likely find the ship graveyard cave. If you find the cave before the Cavern of Wrath, you can drop a portal at it just like with the Submerged Passage, or just remember where it's at and continue on. Enter the Cavern of Wrath, take the waypoint back to town because you just unlocked level 12 gems, which are generally the biggest power spike for most leveling setups. Now is a good time to start thinking about elemental resistances. At different stages of the campaign, different damage types are more dangerous than others. At the end of Act 1 here, cold damage is a lot more prevalent than the other damage types, so it can be a good idea to check Nessa for sapphire rings. If she doesn't have any, you can also just buy an iron ring and vendor it with any blue skill gems to get a sapphire ring. If you dropped a portal for the cave, take it back there now. If you didn't, you can either waypoint back to Merveil's Cavern or back to the ship graveyard, both usually around the same distance. Continue through the ship graveyard cave until you find the all flame on the slave girl in the back of the cave. Pick it up and leave through the nearby exit. This puts you straight in front of Fairgraves. Kill him and then go back to town for a skill point from Bestow. Take the waypoint back to Merveil's Cavern. This area has a lot of winding paths that lead to dead ends, and it's really easy to get body blocked and die. Generally, if you follow the more open areas, they'll be more likely to lead you towards the exit. Merveil's the boss of Act 1. She's got 2 phases. In Phase 1, she shoots icicles at you and occasionally drops blizzards from the sky. At around 66 and 25% HP, she'll teleport away and spawn adds. When she dies, she'll transition into Phase 2. In Phase 2, she loses her Icicle ability and replaces it with a slow-moving wave. She also loses the Blizzard ability and replaces it with a bunch of tornadoes. Occasionally, she screams, which does cold damage around her. Again, roughly 66% and 25% HP, she'll teleport away and spawn adds. The red adds try to give you a little love hug and explode on contact. Just kill her and complete Act 1.
I believe in traveling. We stand at death's door. Ladies first, fair Merveil.
Congratulations on beating the hardest part of the campaign. No, that's not a joke. Act 1 is widely considered to be the hardest part of the campaign for a lot of reasons, but most notably it's because of how weak your character is. In Act 2, you have a choice of going right or left from the forest encampment. I prefer to go right towards the crossroads first, not for any particular reason. In the Old Fields, there's an optional side area called the Den, which you can complete by killing the mini-boss at the end for an additional Quicksilver flask. If you still only have the 1 flask from the Medicine Chest quest in Act 1, you might want to consider going out of your way to do it. Major point of Act 2 is the Bandit quest. There's 3 bandits that are spread out across zones in Act 2 that you can either choose to help or kill. If you kill all 3 of the bandits, Aramir in the forest encampment will give you an additional skill point, but if you choose to help any of them, which you can only help 1, they each have their own unique permanent buff that they'll apply to your character. These buffs are a lot more powerful than they might seem, and in many cases are a lot more than the 1 skill point. In my opinion, helping Alira for the 15% elemental resistances is extremely helpful, even pretty deep into the endgame. The bonus you choose from this quest can be changed at any time at the cost of 20 Orbs of Regret and a specific amulet depending on the bonus you want to change to. From the Crossroads waypoint, I prefer to go down toward the crypt first. In the crypt, we'll be looking for our second lab trial, and then on the second floor, we need to collect the golden hand job for a skill point from Yelena. After the crypt, I prefer to go to the broken bridge and deal with our first bandit. Kraityn will give us 8% movement speed if we choose to help him. I don't. Collect his amulet and go back to the crossroads to our final destination on the right side, the Chamber of Innocence. On the first floor, the staircase down will always be on the side of the center circle that the waypoint is. Since I see the waypoint on the right side of that center room, I know that the staircase will also be on the right side. On the second floor, make sure to look for the lab trial. In general, the lab trial will most commonly spawn in the top half of the area, and the pathway to the story quest will spawn in the bottom half of the area. Kill Fidelidus and collect the baleful gem to continue the main story. After the Chamber of Sins, we gain access to some of the most impactful gems in the campaign, Heralds and Blood Rage. Each of the different Heralds have unique special effects, but generally either Herald of Ash or Herald of Ice will be your pickup for the bonus on-kill effects that they grant. Blood Rage is an extremely powerful buff, causing you to generate frenzy charges on kill at the cost of a small amount of health degen. Frenzy charges give us attack speed and cast speed, and more faster is more better. The Riverways is generally going to be your first encounter with Einhar. the master for the bestiary mechanic. He shows up from time to time, starting in Act 2 and continuing through the whole rest of the game. Being in his presence gives you the boon of the First One's buff, which gives 5% life regen per second, 3% of damage leeches life, and 5% life gain on kill. If you don't talk to him, he'll teleport to you and become active only after you've been in combat with a beast for a little bit. Beasts are the monsters that are marked with the bestiary icon on your minimap in either red or yellow. During the campaign, until you kill a red beast for the first time, Einhar will always start in this inactive state. So it could be advantageous to go out of your way to kill one red beast here, so he'll be active by default whenever he shows up in the future. In the riverways, continue left along the road all the way to the waypoint and beyond. The road breaks at a lot of points in the area. If you don't have a movement ability that can go over these gaps, you'll be a pretty broken person. But there's passable paths above and below these sections. In the Western Forest, we've got 3 objectives. First, I like to follow the path all the way to pick up the waypoint, and then to the end, kill the Blackguard soldiers first for the thematic emblem to open the path for a skill point from Bestel in Act 1. Don't forget to pick that up when you go to town next, so you don't end up 5 hours into a recording and confused how you don't have all your skill points. After opening the way, choose a side of the road to follow and look out for either a walled encampment or webbed trees. Ideally, we want to see the walled encampment, but if you see these webbed trees, you know you're on the wrong side of the road to find Alira, our second bandit. Helping Alira will give us 15% elemental resistances, which is an incredibly valuable bonus, both during the campaign and even into the early endgame. I heavily favor this bonus over all the others, but in this instance, I chose to kill her. Now that you've opened the path and dealt with Alira, go to that webbed tree area on the opposite side of Alira's camp and find the Weaver's lair. Proceed through and fight the Weaver mini-boss, collecting Maligaro's spike and return to town. Don't forget to go back to Act 1 and get that skill point from Bestel. To finish off Act 2, return to the Riverways waypoint and go up towards the wetlands. In the wetlands, continue upwards until you find Oak's camp. Helping Oak will give you 40 base maximum life, which is a pretty substantial amount, but generally considered less valuable than the other bonuses. Deal with him however you want and continue upward through the zone until the waypoint. If you followed my path, you'll need to return to town here to get the Apex from Aramir to continue the main story later. This is a very small inefficiency, and I don't care. Once you've got the Apex, go back and open the way to the Vaal ruins. This area is a huge maze, and I have no idea how to navigate it. Since they added this little corruption altar, it kind of stands out as a directional aid. Continue through to the northern forest, then to the caverns, then the ancient pyramid, and finally, the Vaal Oversoul boss. This boss has a few mechanics, but none of them are dangerous as long as we just walk in a circle. He goes into hiding sometimes, and we just need to wait for him to come back up, and then just keep walking in a circle. Once he's dead, wait for the door to open, and continue on to Act 3.
A duel like no other. I think I'm starting to like this rake last.
Right when you exit into the city of Sarn, you gain access to movement speed crafts for your boots. If you weren't lucky enough to find a pair of boots with movement speed earlier, it's worth it to go to your hideout and craft movement speed on your boots now, and keep this in mind as you upgrade your gear later. Once we kill all the guards up here, we're faced with the hardest quest in all of Path of Exile: talking to a woman. In the Sarn encampment, we'll just go straight to the top right exit to the slums. Slums layouts can either spawn you with a leftward angled entrance or a rightward angled entrance. The angle of your entrance indicates the most likely spawn areas of the crematorium, left angles favoring left side spawns and right angles favoring right. It is possible for it to spawn on the other side, but your safest bet is just to continue in the path it directs you towards. Credit to Balar for all the images. In the crematorium, we're looking for both a lab trial and a big open room where Piety will be. Complete the lab trial, kill Piety, and pick up Tolman's bracelet before returning to town. Turn the bracelet into Clarissa for a key, and after you get the key, you can also talk to Maramoa for an aura, curse, or mark gem reward. Go back to the slums and unlock the sewers. In the sewers, you'll always find 1 bust before the waypoint and 2 after. The second bust will always spawn very shortly after the waypoint, and the third can be distinguished based on the size of the room after your waypoint. You can see here that my room after the waypoint is a very small room, because we can see the entire room on our screen and there's no big floor gaps. This would indicate to me that the third bust will spawn on the bottom half of this area. If you were to have a large open room here, that would indicate that the third bust will be in the top half, closer to the exit. After exiting the sewers, continue through the marketplace. If you run into the Decanter Spiritus quest item in a chest here, you can just leave it on the ground and ignore it. Just after the waypoint, enter the catacombs and look for another lab trial. Complete it, go back to town, and get your skill point from Hargan for the busts, and then go back to the marketplace. Continue through, get to the battlefield. Go upwards through this zone, angling toward the left side to find the waypoint and a ribbon spool. Once you've got the ribbon spool, just go straight up from where you picked it up to find the docks. The docks is the first zone in the campaign that's extremely favorable to grinding experience. The enemies are higher level than most of the surrounding zones, and it's much more densely packed. If you want to push your levels up to equip specific gems or just get stronger in general, this is a really good place to do so. Docks layouts can either be what I would call open or straight. In this video, I got an open layout, which tends to be more common. This means that there are piers on every corner of this more centralized point, so I try to path towards these corners to find the piers where the quest item could spawn. With the Ribbon Spool and Thaumatic Sulfite, we can return to the battlefield's waypoint and run to the top right of the zone to find the Lunaris Temple. Go through here, get to the second floor, and then find Diala at the end. She'll give you the Infernal Talc and an amulet of your choosing. This amulet choice can really help smooth out your stat requirements, especially now that we're using auras or curses, which might require stats that our builds aren't favorable toward getting. From Diala, you might want to consider going to the nearby side room and picking up a flat fire damage craft for both spells and attacks. With the Infernal Talc, go back to the sewers and open up the block path, picking up the first physical damage craft here. This is your reminder to go craft modifiers on your gear. In the Ebony Barracks, we can kill the Gravicius mini-boss, who will give us access to level 28 gems. He can be pretty difficult, especially if you have lower fire resistance, and if you don't need anything from him, then you can just skip it. Continue upwards towards the Lunaris Temple, going through it very similarly to the Solaris Temple. On the second level, once you reach this staircase, it opens up into a branching path. You want to go to the side that only has one cart, because you're going to be forever alone, just like that cart. Continue through all these cages, getting shot by titty bitches until you reach Piety. This boss can be pretty tricky if your build is weak. You can kill the little portals that she spawns on the ground to prevent her from transforming into Giga mode. Kill her, pick up the tower key, and don't forget to grab the lightning damage craft in the back of the room. Back in town, make sure to talk to Grigor for his skill point from killing Piety, and then go back to the Ebony Barracks. From this waypoint, go to the right and you'll find the Imperial Gardens. Once you find the waypoint in the Imperial Gardens, you can note that the path to the Scepter of God will either be down or to the right, and the path to the library and the lab trial will always be up. The lab trial is going to be at the top right of the area, and the library is just directly up. The library is an optional area where you can complete a quest to gain access to a bunch of gems that your class usually doesn't have access to before this point. Some builds benefit greatly from this. Mine doesn't, so I did not do the library. Once you finish this lab trial, we now have access to the Labyrinth. You go back to town, head up this staircase, and interact with the plaque to gain access to it from any waypoint. You don't have to do lab right now. In general, while you're going through lab, your fastest path is usually going to be in the top right of any given area. You can always check your current location next to any doorway to see if you're progressing toward the path that you actually want to be. After you beat Azaro 3 times, you'll gain access to your Ascendancy class. Before leaving town here, consider looking for lightning resistance rings on Clarissa. The upcoming boss fight is almost entirely lightning damage, so you can give yourself a much easier time by preparing for it. Go back to the Imperial Gardens and take the right or bottom paths to find the Scepter of God. In this area, you usually want to aim for the corners of the zone if you were to square off the edges of these circles. That's most likely where the staircases will spawn. Eventually, you'll reach the most iconic boss in Path of Exile, Dominus.
Welcome to the greatest of arenas, duelist. God is watching.
In the first phase, you just have to kill a ton of his ads. There's a few unique enemies here that have different specific attacks, but they really shouldn't be any problem in modern PoE. After killing all his lackeys,
Have you ever seen the true face of God in Exile?
he'll come down. You can spawn totems that shoot lightning beams between them, shoot a bunch of little ghosty guys at you, and occasionally he'll slam the ground.
The touch of God! This world is an illusion, Exile.
After killing him here, he'll go Giga mode. In this phase, his melee attacks will do a ton of damage and give you stacks of Corrupting Blood, a physical damage over time debuff. Periodically, he'll put a bubble around him, and if you stand outside that bubble, you'll gain a lot of Corrupting Blood stacks very fast. Be hot on your health pot, and beat him off to complete Act 3.
I believe in traveling light. A just death to address an unjust exile. I think we're even now, High Templar.
The Aqueduct here is another good zone for grinding experience, like the docks. The linear layout makes you encounter a lot more enemies than other areas would. Run through it to get to Highgate. This is a good time to do some gambling, assuming it's still good in 3.26 and beyond, for 4-link gear in preparation for some of the more powerful gems that we'll unlock later in this act. Leave through the left exit from town into the Dry Lake, traveling down to the bottom of the zone, kill Vol, and pick up the banner. When we go back to town and open the way to the mines, we unlock level 34 gems, which most notably includes Golem minions. Mines level 2 has a Spirit of Deshret, which will give us a skill point back in town. It's not always on the main path, so if you don't see it when you find the exit to the Crystal Veins, make sure to backtrack and look for it. Keep going through the Crystal Veins till you get to the waypoint. Here we get to choose which path we go through first. In Daresso's Dream, we'll go through the pits. Navigating this area can be a little tricky, but generally if you follow the bottom left wall, you'll be less likely to run into dead ends until you eventually reach the end, which will always be towards the top right of the area. Once all the monsters in this arena are dead, continue into the Grand Arena. In the Grand Arena, you'll always want to follow the paths that go left and up if they exist. If you go to the right when you could go left, you'll look really stupid. When you get to this arena that has 3 rogue exiles in it, you have to kill them before you can continue. After killing them, continue forward to fight Daresso. Daresso does mostly cold damage and likes to move around a lot, which can be really annoying. After he's done going immune a billion times, he'll finally die and drop the Eye of Desire. Pick it up and head back to the Crystal Veins to take the other path to Kaom's Dream. In Kaom's Dream, the correct path will always be to the right and generally towards the bottom of the area. Continue through these long winding paths to wrap back into more open areas, which will progress through the left side of the arena this time. Go up one more layer and then it'll wrap back right again until you reach Kaom's Stronghold. Kaom's Stronghold is generally a lot more linear. Kaom's Arena starts with a third of the area denied by these fireballs, and another third will be denied once he reaches 50% health. Just walk in a circle to avoid his attacks and win. When you go back to town, this is a good time to get ready for the rest of Act 4 and Act 5. The majority of the dangerous elemental damage ahead is going to be lightning, and a lot of enemies are going to cause corrupting blood and bleed. If you have an excess of alteration orbs, it can be a good idea to try and roll a life flask for a modifier that removes bleeding on use. Go back to the Crystal Veins and talk to Diala twice to open up the Belly of the Beast. Belly of the Beast has lots of winding paths and frequent dead ends. The enemies in this area shoot ball lightning attacks, which are extra dangerous in these tight corridors where you can't easily be avoided, and they also frequently cause bleeding. At the end of level 2, we'll fight Piety for a third time. This time she'll be shooting lightning balls that persist for a period. Her melee attacks do heavy damage and apply corrupting blood, and occasionally she'll shoot a death laser which she'll spin around the room. After defeating her, talk to her and continue into the harvest. At the waypoint, we'll need to go down 2 separate paths to find organs. On the right side, we'll fight Chevron, who will shoot lightning balls at a distance, periodically spawn these books which will explode in lightning damage after a short time, and in melee range she'll do lightning tendrils, which hurt a lot if you don't have good lightning resistance. Kill her for the organ, go back to the waypoint, and then go left. On the bottom half of the left side, we'll fight Doedri, whose arena has totems with persistent curses around them. The purple area causes temporal chains, a slowing curse. Green area causes enfeeble, which reduces your damage dealt, and the red area causes vulnerability, which increases your physical damage taken. If you curse or mark her, she'll consume it and gain unholy might, which will cause her to deal extra damage as chaos. The balls she throws are physical damage and can shotgun you if you stand too close and get hit, so make sure to walk in a circle. The last mini boss here is Maligaro. He does primarily chaos damage when you walk over the blade stuck in the ground and from his desecrate and corpse explosion casts. Having multiple life flasks can really help here. After you've got the organs, go back to Piety to turn them in, and then click on the black core twice to enter. Here we'll encounter the first phase of the boss of Act 4, Malachai.
What a pleasure to finally meet you, duelist. You and I will create the most beautiful of nightmares together. Let us bathe you in blood, duelist, so that this world might be bathed in glory.
Periodically, Malachai will open a portal to the hentai dimension and try to tentacle you. Just walk in a circle around him to get out of it. At 75% and 50% HP, he'll become immune and turn Piety into a version you killed earlier. You'll have to do some damage to her to be able to attack him again. After you kill Piety twice, he'll fucking kill her and flee into the Vor hole for phase 2. At 75, 50, and 25% HP, he'll go immune and heal to 25% above the respective threshold and activate one of the hearts in the room. Killing that heart will make him vulnerable again. Just keep walking in circles to avoid his slams and hentai portal. Avoid the red runes on the ground if possible. And if he disappears and then breaks free from the shackles of hell beneath you, just get out of the way. Once he's dead, go back to town. Pick up the skill point from Tsuni if you hadn't before. We now have access to the final set of gems in the campaign. Generally, these are considered to be the most powerful ones. Take this opportunity to check your build and see if you need any of these gems, because they're usually significantly stronger than other options. Once you're ready, exit through the right exit from town into the Ascent and climb toward Act 5. The exit to Act 5 can be found in the top right section of the area after crossing one bridge about halfway through. After getting dropped off in the slave pens, navigate through, generally trying to do a loop around, aiming toward the bottom right, then to the bottom left, and finally to the top left. At the end, kill Overseer Crow and walk over to the tower for a ladder to drop. In town, this is your final warning that lightning damage is extremely scary in this act. To a lesser extent, fire damage as well, but mostly lightning. Once you're ready, head into the control blocks. We'll navigate to the top left of the zone first for the miasm meter for a passive point, and then we'll hug the outside wall, eventually reaching Justicar Casticus. Take his balls and continue through the zone, dying several times to a tormented essence mob because you didn't cap your lightning resistance like I told you to, till you escape into Oriath Square. Just run straight through the square. Only really bother killing enemies for flask charges if you need them, till you eventually reach the Templar Courts. In the Templar Courts, hug the top and right outside wall until you reach an open court area, which will either exit downward or to the left. Go through that exit and continue to hug this outer wall, and eventually you'll reach the Chamber of Innocence. This area is incredible for grinding experience. If you feel like you need a little bit more power, don't be afraid to leave and make new instances of this area just to keep grinding up to a little higher level. To navigate through the zone, we'll want to go upward and to the left as much as possible, continuing to push even further than it looks like you'll need to. The paths will look like they'll go down to the boss arena, but they won't. Despite my warning about lightning damage, Avarius and Innocence deal incredibly high fire damage. At various health breakpoints, they'll go immune and spawn adds for a period of time. Just kill the adds and wait until the boss is attackable again. Once Innocence is dead, exit out the new exit, and then go straight forward into the Ruined Courts. Again, just run straight through, hugging the outer wall of the Ruined Courts into the Ruined Square. When you get out here, take the second pathway up, an immediate right to go to the second pathway up again. Get the waypoint and go into the ossuary, running a big loop for the Sign of Purity at the end. Collect it, get back to the Ruined Square. Go back through this area in the general direction you came from the control blocks, aiming for the bottom left of the zone to find the Reliquary. The 3 Kitava's Torments in this area can be found in the top right, bottom right, and bottom middle of this zone very consistently. Collect them all and go back to town for passive points from Lonnie and Valenta. Back in the Ruined Square, this time when you get to the big open area, go straight up to the cathedral rooftop. Just keep going forward here until you eventually come face to face with Kitava. Big statue boy here is super slow and lumbering in this fight. Just stay far to one side to make his sweeping attacks easier to avoid. Once you hit his first health threshold, he'll get his usual moveset, and just continue to hop from far side to avoid his attacks. Damage him until he goes immune, and then damage his heart until he grabs it back twice, and then kill him one last time to complete the first half of the campaign and be rewarded with a massive kick in the balls.
The flame of hope may flicker, but it cannot be extinguished.
Is this what losing a fight feels like? Ugh.
Remember?
In the back half of the campaign here, we'll run back through many of the areas we came through in the first half. To start, we'll go back to the Twilight Strand where it all started. Kill every single monster here to unlock Lilly Roth as a gem vendor, both here in Act 6 and in our hideout. She sells every single standard gem regardless of what class you're playing, but they start at level 1 as opposed to having a little bit of experience in them from other vendors throughout the campaign. In the rest of these acts, the monsters are extra dangerous. Be mindful about trying to cap your resistances and getting good life and defensive rolls on your equipment to have the most smooth time. Here in Act 6, fire damage is very prevalent for the first half, and then lightning and cold damage become a lot more dangerous for pretty much the entire rest of the campaign. Just like in Act 1, we'll run straight through the coast into the mudflats. At the far right of this area, we'll kill the Dishonored Queen for the Eye of Conquest to enter Tukohama's fortress at the quest marker earlier in the zone. Here we'll fight Tukohama, our first Pantheon boss. Killing him gives us access to his Pantheon bonus, but it's not very useful to us at this point, so there's no point waiting for Sin to show up to enable it. Continue through the ridge, just like the ledge in Act 1, and into the prison. Again, mirroring Act 1, we'll find a lab trial here. Complete it, continue through Chevron's tower, and at the top we'll fight Brutus too. You'll never guess how to beat him. Exit into the Prisoner's Gate. In Act 6, I like to walk to it instead of going back to town, just to pick up this spell damage craft. Out here, we're going to do the same thing we did to search for the ship graveyard in Act 1, but this time it's going to lead us to Abberath, another Pantheon boss. Kill him, and our fear of fire is mostly over at this point, so if you have to choose between fire and other resistances, you'll probably benefit more from the other ones. Back at the Prisoner's Gate, we'll follow the road to the Western Forest through the way we opened in Act 2, which you definitely remember to get the skill point reward for. Right? Follow the road through to the riverways. Then when you find the waypoint here, you can run straight up from it to get to the wetlands, just like in Act 2. Here we're looking for the spawning ground side area to kill the Ryslatha Pantheon boss. After killing her, now's a good time to go back to town and pick up our 3 passive point rewards. Back in the riverways, follow the path until it dead ends and then go straight down to find the southern forest. The exit in this area will usually be in the bottom right, but the paths don't always flow in that direction. You can jump over these gaps if the land spawns close enough, but generally if you still have water to your right, you probably want to hang toward the top of whatever island you're on to find the path. Grab the black flag from Nessa, die because you still didn't cap your lightning resistance, and then run through this cavern to the beacon. Here, we'll run across the beach till we get to this stone structure. We need to guide these pillars into these holes by staying in this highlighted area while ghosts try and stop us. Turn on the beacon, throw the flag into it to make Johnny Depp show up, talk to him to get taken at Davy Jones. Usually I find that the Brine King arena spawns in the bottom right of this area. If your path opens up too close to the starting point, it's probably bait. The Brine King does a ton of cold and lightning damage, which are also just a lot more dangerous than fire damage because they're secondary effects. Be careful where you stand during the immunity phases because getting frozen by a wave and then shocked by lightning bolts will easily kill you. Act 7 starts where we killed Kraityn back in Act 2. Follow the path back to the crossroads and then straight down toward the crypt. Just like in Act 2, we're looking for a lab trial here. After completing that, continue to the second level of the crypt, this time for Maligaro's map instead of the golden handjob. Back at the crossroads, go up to once again reach the Chamber of Sins. In the center circle, we'll find a map device where we can put Maligaro's map to invade his mind palace. Kill him and his dogs for the black venom, which we'll give to Silk for a key. Again, just like Act 2, we know that the stairway down is in the same direction of the waypoint. On the second level, we can once again expect the lab trial to be at the top half of the area and the path for the main quest to be in the bottom. Complete the lab trial and have your layout reading be proven wrong instantly by the main path spawning also on the top half of the area. This time, instead of killing Spider-Man, we'll continue around the full loop through a secret exit into the den. In the Ashen Field, just run directly left until you find the Reliquary Pantheon boss. This one I do think is worth staying for Sin 4, as it reduces physical damage over time we take and prevents us from taking extra damage from movement while bleeding. Might as well put on the Brine King Pantheon too. In the Northern Forest, we're looking for the Dread Thicket. Sometimes this area can spawn below the waypoint, so I like to check around here first so I don't have to fully backtrack should I not find it anywhere else. In the Dread Thicket, we're looking for 7 Fireflies, as well as the Gruthkul Pantheon boss. Once we've collected the Fireflies and committed a home invasion homicide, go back to town for some passive points, and then go back through the Northern Forest into the Causeway. Here we start experiencing our first real taste of chaos damage, with these little razor clam looking asses being able to shotgun us to death if we're not careful. At the end of this area, pick up Kishara's Star and return it to Whalem for a passive point. The Vaal City is infamous for its layouts that can waste a lot of time. I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about them. This image gets shared around a lot. You can see I got the cliff layout, which would have been great if I ever remembered what that meant. Instead, I'll just run this giant circle for 5 minutes before finally making my way into the Temple of Decay. Proceed through all the many floors here. Movement skills with further reach like Blink Arrow or Smoke Mine can save you a lot of time, but some of these gaps can be crossed with shorter ones like Leap Slam if you just believe hard enough. Arakali does chaos damage with all of her attacks, which is extremely difficult to have any resistance to at this stage of the game. Luckily, she has very obvious tells for what and where she's going to attack. Just make sure to avoid being right in front of those luscious lips and don't get hit by the lasers, and you shouldn't have too many problems. Run straight through the ramparts. The way on top of the wall always spawns in the top right, then it loops back down towards the left to town. Remember, as always, to keep gambling for better gear and crafting extra mods. This act has us going through parallels of Act 3, which has the Solaris and Lunaris temples, meaning fire and cold resistance are going to be our targets here. Head around to the top left of town into the sewers. This area is tightly packed with a lot of chaos degens, so if you have a flash slot you aren't really using, grabbing an extra health potion might help. The zone usually loops around to the bottom left and then all the way back top right into Doedra's cesspool. Here we just follow these winding toxic sewer paths until eventually we'll come up on a big circular area with Doedra's arena in the middle. Doedra has her same physical puke balls as in Act 4, but this time she leaves puddles on the ground to apply her curses instead of totems. She can teleport on top of you and fucking explode too. Kill her and exit out into a branching path. We'll go both directions, but I prefer to start to the right. Follow it until you get to the quay. In this area, I like to follow the water until I find this archway with a scrappy bridge. Here we'll pick up the Ankh of Eternity, and then just go back across the bridge, or just fall into the water for an eternity of pain and suffering. We'll keep following this water around, hugging the outside, until we eventually find this really long wall and a tiny hole on one end. Go through that hole and we'll find the resurrection site. Give Clarissa the Ankh of Eternity and she'll start doing some voodoo demon shit because she just can't move on. After we give her boy toy another death, make sure to talk to her because she's needy as fuck and won't reward us otherwise. Go back out that tiny hole in the wall and continue following the outside edge until eventually we'll run into the Grain Gate. Here, we'll navigate through the buildings by specifically looking for the ones with dismembered corpses in the doorways. Everyone knows that if you find a trail of dismembered corpses, the absolute best course of action is always to follow it. After a couple more bodies, we'll find the Gemling Legionnaires, kill them to get a passive point later, and continue into the Imperial Fields. Just run straight up here and eventually you'll find the Lunaris Temple. Here, we'll want to follow the carpets and avoid any paths that aren't carpeted. That's not to say carpeted paths can't be incorrect, but paths without carpet are always wrong. If you find the exit into the Solaris Concourse, you've gone too far. Down in Solaris Level 2, we'll continue with our follow the carpet plan until eventually we'll find a hell portal where Diala used to be. Kill Dawn for the Sun Orb, which we'll use to summon Groudon later. And don't forget the crafting recipe. Back in town, do your standard upgrading your gear thing, grabbing your quest passive points, and then head back into the cesspool. Go left this time to get to the Grand Promenade. This area is just a really long straight path until the bathhouse. Make sure you pick up this waypoint because you can miss it, and if you do, your life will suck. Look for this big center room. You can kill this guy and pick up the quest item in the middle to get a jewel back in town if you want. From here, the top right and top left of the area will always be the lab trial and high gardens. It's just random which is which. Do the lab trial first and then go into the high gardens. enemies. This area is infested with porcupines that explode on death into physical spikes. If you're an evasion-based build or haven't gotten a lot of life up to this point, just run through praying desperately to every god you've ever heard of. And at the end, we'll fight Yugal in the Pools of Terror for a passive point in town. At this point, you've unlocked your second Labyrinth if you want to complete it now for another Ascendancy notable. I don't do it until later, but there's no reason you can't do it now. Go back to the bathhouse and out the bottom right exit this time into the Lunaris concourse. Run right for the waypoint to get back here later and then straight up. Keep going up into the Lunaris Temple. Here we'll repeat the follow the carpet strat until we reach level 2. Just like in Act 3, we'll be looking for these long staircases upward, where eventually we'll be reminded of just how lonely we are at the top of the final one. Flee through the swarms of titty bitches until eventually we make it to dusk. We'll kill for the moon orb so we can summon Kyogre later. Don't forget the recipe. Go back to town, clean yourself up, and then waypoint back to the Lunaris concourse. Straight down from here, we'll find the Harbor Bridge. You can reset this zone repeatedly to try and spawn Delirium Mirrors to farm low-level cluster jewels if you so please, but that sucks, and I don't like being miserable. In the middle of the area, we'll throw out Groudon and Kyogre in hopes of enticing Rayquaza down to Earth, but instead we'll just have to kill him to complete the act. Coming in on the home stretch, Act 9 starts us in the Blood Aqueducts, the single best experience grinding area in the entire campaign. The monsters here can be a little dangerous if you don't have a bleed flask, but the area is so dense and linear you'll often see hardcore players grinding into the 70s here. I think it's worth noting that there are uncommon card drops in this area which can be turned in for a Tabula Rasa. This body armor has no stats, but it's got 6 linked white sockets. Historically, it's been really useful and people would farm for it, but in recent years the raw stats from other body armors just aren't worth giving up anymore. Act 9 here parallels Act 4. This time we're going to exit out the right side of town immediately and go down the ascent instead of up, through all these elevators and a ton of freezing enemies until we eventually reach the Vistiri Desert. This area has a quest item that we're going to need to pick up, the Storm Blade, in this circular arena. Kill the waves of enemies until you get it, and then look for the waypoint, which will usually be near this little bridge with a blocked off area. Drop a portal here, talk to Sin, and then turn the Storm Blade in for a bottled storm from Pitaris and Vanya. Returning through our portal will immediately open the path to the Oasis. Here, we'll just walk along the walls until we find the sand pit to kill Shikari. If you find the Forbidden Vault, there's nothing really of value there, so don't bother with it. After killing Shikari, return to town and grab a passive point from Arasha. Take the waypoint to the Vistiri Desert and head straight up into the foothills. Here, I like to take a turn down and then follow this right wall until I find the waypoint. To the right of this waypoint will always be the Boiling Lake, which has a basilisk at the end, which we'll need to kill for some acid. Head back to the foothills via the waypoint in town, and then go straight up to the tunnel. At the start of the tunnel here, you'll want to turn left to find a lab trial. Complete it before continuing deeper in. Pop out into the quarry, running straight down the center to get the waypoint and meet our boy Sin. Man's trying to throw a lit party, so we gotta bring him some acid, which we already have, and some funny powder. From here, most commonly you'll need to head both left and right, so just pick any side. You'll either run into the Shrine of Winds, where we'll kill Garukan for the Sekima Feather, which can be turned in for another passive point, or we'll find the Refinery, where we'll need to beat up a cop and steal some coke.
Oh, Trathus, how I miss your opium dens.
Take your illicit substances to Sin to get so fucked up you start rolling through the belly of the beast. This area has the same lightning damage and bleeding mobs as the end of Act 4, which can really easily kill you. And just like Act 4, it's got all these narrow, winding corridors and dozens of dead ends. So just keep running and eventually you'll get through. In the Rotting Core, we're going to jump down Malachai's Vor Hole for the second time to find Sin, ready to be our trip guide. Hell portals to the mine palaces of the 3 bosses we've killed over and over will open up, and we'll have to go through and defeat them again. Chevron here has all of her same moveset, just a little amped up. She can also summon Brutus to slam us too. Maligaro also has his same moveset, just significantly faster, as well as this small immunity phase where he shadow clone jutsus at us. Show him you're worthy of becoming Hokage and then continue to Dodra. Unlike the other two, she's got a new show going on. She'll spawn these cursing totems, which are killable this time, and then screech at you like you sank her ship in Sea of Thieves or something. You can hide behind the totems to avoid damage from the screech, but you'll be gaining curse stacks the whole time. After your trip is over, Sin will try to guide you home, but turns out you actually just hit the peak, and now you gotta fight all 3 bosses in one. Most of the attacks from the Depraved Trinity are just ground effects, so we can employ Old Reliable here and break her kneecaps to enter the final act.
Good luck. That was the last time I'll have to sully myself with those 3.
York well. Ready to go?
Act 10 really doesn't have a lot going on, so it's time to lock in and close out. Head up to the rooftops where we fought Kitava in Act 5 and saved Bannon, then run all the way down these rooftops to eventually find the square. Here we want to walk down this right wall, but take the second pathway. The first bridge is always broken. Back up a little bit and further right, we'll find the waypoint right outside the ossuary, just like before. Head inside and down to the bone pits. At the far end of this zone, you'll find your last lab trial. Complete it, and then get back to the Ravaged Square. Walk down and around this same winding loop as Act 5 and into the Torched Courts. Navigate these halls the exact same path until eventually we reach the Desecrated Chambers. Again, just like in Act 5, this zone is pretty solid experience if you feel weak and want to grind. Otherwise, we'll follow the same strategy of pathing along the outer wall even further than we think we need to, until eventually we'll reach the Sanctum and fight Avarius reassembled, take his stick back to Bannon in town, who will get chest-burstered by Innocence. Our last task before finishing out the campaign is to go back through the square to the control blocks and find Valenta. I don't know what a miasmeter is, but apparently it turns you into a hell ghoul, so clean up your mess for your last passive point. If you killed all the bandits in Act 2, typing /passives here should show you 22 passive points. But in this instance, I chose to kill her.
A stranger there.
Otherwise, it'll show 21. If it doesn't, you can reference the wiki page for passive points to find out what you missed. You remember to go back to Bestel during Act 2, right? We've got all our lab trials done, so now, while we still have some of our resistances, it's the best time for us to go complete lab. Once you're all set with your gear and ascendancies, head back to the square and talk to Innocence to Kamehameha beam a hole into the canals. Navigate around the walls here, usually preferring the left side until eventually you'll reach the feeding trough. Run up for 1,000 years to eventually reach Kitava 2, Infinite Immunity Phase Edition. Just sludge on through, back and forth, killing him, and then his heart, and then waiting for him to let your boys go, then kill him again, and then his heart. Eventually, he'll finally die, and we can actually start playing the game.
May a new dawn arise.
Get knocked out by Lilly and wake up on the beach. Wait, what the fuck? Oh god, not again.